Awesome.
Hello, hello. Can y'all hear us? We added a new trader and it had a few. Gotta cover my. There we go. We had some technical difficulties making sure that everything got set up. I've got to get streaming. I tell you, for doing this, I really have to get better at like actually doing the technical side of this stuff. I gotta watch some YouTube videos or something and stop worrying about day trading and actually worrying about being a better YouTube person. How else am I gonna be a good scammy guru if I don't have like stuff that's flashy? How's it going, everybody? So, fireside chat, come hang out and chill. If y'all want to throw it up in the Discord or anywhere else, let people know that we're live. We have a special guest, Rose, who is going by the Black and White Trader today. CT here as I guess you could say always now. We could say, hey, what up? We could say here as always. On the Friday shows. I have bamboozled him into being on the shows on Friday nights and hanging out. We're here to talk about the week, talk about some of the struggles we've had, talk about, what's ever on y'all's mind. You can ask us questions. We'll just kind of go over our weeks individually, what we thought, what we're looking forward to next week. And, we'll just kind of see where the show goes. We'll, have a good time. And whenever we stop having a good time or when, we just start getting really tired, we'll call it. So with all that, I'm Gator, and this is our weekly Fireside Week Review Chat. All right, so Rose, you haven't been on the show yet. So I know a lot of people know you from the Newsbeat live room and from Discord, and when we talk about the Amazon Queen and everything, this is you. But I will give you a chance first to introduce yourself, your history as a trader, how you got into this business, et cetera, et cetera. So take it away.
Okay, well, hello. Great to be on YouTube, I guess, on the Gator Show. I just tell you, I've learned a lot from this guy and CT as well. And yeah, trading, I just absolutely love it. I've always loved it, and I've been into it since I was like, I don't know, I think I was 17, 18 years old. I opened up a share builder account like way, way, way back. So I'm kind of dating myself a little bit, but I'm not that old. Um, I was just really young, and I got into day trading actually back then, and I didn't really make too much money at it. But I knew you could. I like absolutely knew you could, and I'm like, wow, this is really something exciting. But then I ended up getting a real job driving a semi truck all across the country. So I've been a truck driver for the last 15 years, and but I off and on, did some trading while in that profession as well. Some swing trading, some took a break a few times, did some Apple options way back in like 2008. I was like all big into Apple options, should have held them. But yeah, that would have been amazing if I held Apple options
Yeah.
then. But I just couldn't really day trade and drive the truck at the same time, or I had to be so on top of the market. Even with the swing trading, when you're doing options, I couldn't keep up with it while driving. So then I really was desperate to get out of driving a semi, and I happened to come across Newsbeat Live and Mark Melnick, who completely changed my life because he provided a systematic way in which you could have consistency with making an income, to replace your job, basically. And you're sort of like this big dream, like, is that possible? Okay, can I maybe do this? I don't know. I'll just see. But it's really been a journey, and something that's it's always a journey. It's always still a journey, but it's like the dream is more real now than it's ever been. So I just very grateful for that.
It's a good feeling, and to finally get to where you look at something that you've been trying to do for so long and be like, I can actually do this. This is actually legitimate.
Yeah, yeah, really. It really is.
So now that we have had introductions for the night, a toast to all y'all, to the week, to trading, to the losses, to the wins. I hope we remain psychologically healthy.
Tink.
Tink. And Rose. Tink.
There it is.
Cheers,
Cheers.
everybody.
I'm
Cheers.
ghosting in and out.
You could change your background to like where you're like on a beach and then in the mountains and
I know I should have this big, beautiful El Junque rainforest of Puerto Rico in my background. Like up at the top of the rainforest.
you
With
have
the
to
coquis
when you get
frogs.
there, you have to go up there and pretend like you're trading, or at least do one trade from the top of a mountain or something like morning hike. Guys, I'm done with my hike, and you can be sitting there and just hum and like
On your
on
laptop,
your
like by
lap.
the waterfall.
one
Yes, yes.
one trade and then go for a swim and then post a picture and be like, I just made like $500 and now I'm trading or something like that.
Yeah.
Just to do it, just because I think that makes you a good trader. We do. We'll have to hit up Booth to come on the show. I know he's been really busy and had a lot going on and stuff. Haven't been able to talk to him as much, but yeah, know something. We definitely will have him and anybody that's in the rotation crew that's listening or hanging out, or I've even talked to some of the other guys. I know some of you would DM me about coming on and giving your story and stuff, and it is something I'll set up and kind of schedule in the future if you have messaged me to come on and to kind of talk about, trading and your journey and different stuff. I think it's good to hear from different people and different perspectives and just to know that we're like, I don't think there's anything special about us in the way that we're all like just normal individual people. So it's like, and we all come from slightly different backgrounds. Rose, was a truck driver. I was a Marine. CeeTee, you've done a lot of different stuff. You're the man with the mustache. So, like, literally, you have done everything that can exist, and you're really good at all of it. So, but yeah, Eddie. I actually talked to Eddie about coming on. I think next week I'm gonna try to schedule something with Eddie to come on. So, I think Eddie will be on next week. I didn't know if he was free on Friday nights, or I would ask him to come on tonight. But and I think it helps traders because I don't know, when you see people maybe that are like too, I don't know, you look at some people like they're not real or something. When you see like the guru trader, the people that has all this stuff, and it's just like they're the far off, distant person who like you could never obtain this, or they're like some type of genius, or like they've been trained in some type of stock market stuff. Like, none of us are that. Like, none of us kind of had that coming into this.
Indeed, I think Rose. I think you probably have both of us beat. I guess in terms like combined experience, you probably have more than me and Gator. But that's impressive. Like it must be pretty exciting to have been interested in it for so long, and then to come up on like the Newsbeat room and find out about these ways to lock in money every day and stuff, and then have that be a way for you to take on this as a full-time job. That's so awesome.
Yeah, and it's like what I really come is really it's not, I mean, none of us have a problem making money. Our problem is losing money. You can always make money in the stock market. It's just you need to make more than you lose. So it really comes down to limiting how much you lose and make winning more often than losing, or well, actually you don't even have to do that. You can lose more often than winning and still make a lot of money. That's what I was doing with Amazon. The majority of my Amazon trades, more than 50% were losing trades, but still I was making decent money with it. So it's just sort of, getting that right ratio with what works.
How have you been doing in that, like, as long as you don't care if we're asking, like this week or this last couple weeks? Today might have been a little bit better, but generally speaking, like, the market's going through this sideways action and you're getting a lot of these kind of shorter measured moves, how have you found your trading to I'd say, like, how have you been adapting your trading to this?
It's been much more difficult. Absolutely. Absolutely been much more difficult. And I remember Mark used to always say that when the 8 EMA moving average is under the 21 on the daily chart of the Qs, the market's more difficult. And you wait until it's above the top, and things get easier. So what I'm finding is kind of what we do as scalpers is we're really momentum traders, and the scalping strategies work best in those windows where there's lots of momentum. And usually that's been for the last 2 weeks, 30 minutes of the market. And like after that 30 minutes, it's just a different market. And sometimes it's coming back in the last hour of the market. So it's sort of, or there'll be like these little spurts of momentum, after that time period, and then it'll just dry up. So before, when the market was hot, you could just kind of bend and click, do a lot of clicky things and just, overtrade, and you could get away with it. You can't do that now, I'm finding. And you have to be extra disciplined. This like discipline times an exponential amount that before you didn't necessarily have to be, but now you do. And so I've had a little inconsistencies the last 2 weeks, but I'll talk a little later about the new strategy I implemented today of the trade limiting, but when we get around to that.
How, like, so you've been working on identifying those times and kind of catching that hot move. It's kind of what I've like kind of tried to and noticed to do too, that if I'm going to trade the rest of the day, I have to entirely change how I trade. Are you trying to kind of like hang around and watch and like adapt to be able to do that slowly, or are you kind of just interested in bandit trading to where you're in there, you're waiting, you're patient, you're hitting it hot, and then you're going with it, using kind of what you talked about today, to where you're limiting yourself, you're really working on your discipline, you hit it hard when it's there, and then you're done and you're okay with that? Or are you trying to be like, well, let's see if I can do some of these like range trades off of these pivot levels and stuff?
I've experimented a little bit with some of the range trading and holding things a little longer with, hit and miss results. Where, if you look at where the majority of where I actually make money is the momentum stuff. So trying to sit there all day and, oh, is this a momentum window? Is that a momentum window? It's really best not to do that, because you end up usually over trading or getting sucked into things that are tempting, but they're really like these sirens on the rocks, trying to tempt you into the market and acting
To
all
steer
pretty.
your ship right into the
Yeah,
to steer your P&L into the over the cliff.
exactly. So you have enough days where you're green in the morning and you're giving it all back, and it's like, all right, when am I gonna finally stop doing this? So, um, so I, for me, that's not for me. It's more just like come in the morning, and then I'll come back to my computer and look to just see what's going on. I'm like, oh nope, nothing's going on, and then leave. I did miss that initial drop that we had this afternoon, but then I came back, and I think you were there, and it was like already had made a big move, so we really had to wait for that setup to reset up, and then for that rebound to fail. And so I was able to participate in some of that, but it's really about that momentum, for especially what we do in this type of scalping trading. If that momentum's not there, if that speed is not there on the tape, then you can make some money and you can lose some money and you make some money, but it's just not worth it. It's just totally not worth it.
No. I CT, I don't know if you found that. I found pretty much the same. Like, if I'm going to trade as a scalper, like a momentum scalper, not a range scalper, like what Rose is saying, it's like I literally sit there. What up, Eddie? You're coming on the show
Eddie's
next
in the
week.
house.
Eddie's in the
Awesome.
house. You're coming on the show next week, right, man? So, like, I've noticed that if I'm going to scalp, there's the kitty that types to us a lot in the chat.
We made like $150 on a trade the other day, right,
Yeah,
Rose?
that cat's made you more money than than any other animal has made people. Usually they cost money.
Ah, she's trying to type again.
But like
I did
I have
sell for her. She entered the trade, but I exited for her.
that's good. I wondered if she like did the whole thing. It's
She hasn't
50-50.
mastered how to take quick
50.
profits yet.
She
I
wanted
was
to
like,
hold. Oh, kitties. Um, but yeah, you wanted to or CT like lost my train of thought. I don't
Cats
know.
will do that.
Yeah, all animals will completely. I don't know if my dog's down here. If she went upstairs with the wife, I don't know. Your like I have found that what Rose said, like if you're going to be a momentum trader, come hit it and quit it, as it were. It's like you come in, you just wait. And right now, what you said this morning is true, which is the market seems to be setting a range early. And it either pops really quickly, at least in the names we generally trade, it'll drop, and then it'll pop a little bit, and then it kind of picks a direction. And once it picks that direction, you oh there you are. Hey puppy. Generally you get that 30 to 15 minutes of like a few good trades that you can take, and then that's pretty much it until the end of the day. Um, or have
Yeah, what I would say is I feel like maybe for with the stuff we're seeing right now where we'll have like a gap up or a gap down, and like maybe for 1 or 2 minutes we'll make a high or a low, and then we will in the next 2 minutes we'll make a new low or a high, vice versa, and it'll keep doing that like in a broadening formation, like over the course of like 10 minutes, which is something I feel like probably with you too, Gator. Like when we started trading, it was typically like directional or it like gapped and crapped, and we
mm-hmm,
wouldn't have this thing where it's like, we have a new high, a new low, a new higher high, a lower low,
mm-hmm,
all within maybe 10 minutes, which is total death trap for anybody who's just trying to like come into the market and just slam it, right out of the gate. So what you're saying about just waiting, I think maybe 10 minutes or so is the sweet spot, but
mm-hmm,
obviously you just have to wait until we actually put in like, a higher low or a lower low, whatever the case may be. And at that point you can catch like, or at least I've been able to catch, maybe 30 minutes of good momentum scalps, and then maybe that peters out at that point, and you need to start really being more cautious with your trades, and just recognizing that. And it's just yet another market condition that we will recognize. It's going to go away at some point, it'll come back in the future, and we'll recognize it at that point, and know how to play it.
Rose, you joined CT, or you joined about the same time that CT and I did in Newsbeat, right? Like,
I joined the end of December of 2020, so I
Exactly like when I was
mm-hmm.
there, so yeah.
So for us, to me, and for the other groups of people in here that are watching this that did the same thing, this is the most dangerous kind of market for us, unless we're adapting and changing and recognizing it. Because unless you're actually changing and identifying the things that are working, like you're going to get wrecked because you cannot trade bender aggressive into names. And even the C strategies, they work. I still make most of my money on C strategies. However, they're not working for the massive amount that they used to right now. Now, next week they might, and we might just get big gap downs, and you might just be able to, do it. We don't know. But they're not right now working for 2 points a trade or whatever it is. It's like 20 cents, 50 cents, like smaller amounts. And so for people who kind of, I assume, get it and who are able to just do the strategies constantly, and have this nonstop work, um, it's a little bit more difficult. Sorry, I'm getting some feedback in one of the mics to adapt. And for me, that's been key, trying to adapt and change. And it seems like for you guys too, and for the other people struggling, that's kind of been the same.
Indeed. And we've talked about this before, Gator, and I think the longer you trade for, the faster you get at recognizing a change in market conditions that's, invalidating a certain strategy or a certain like MO that you're using. So I feel like I'm getting a lot faster at recognizing when things aren't working and like stopping right away, like reassessing. Whereas, what used to turn into like red weeks, from time to time back when I first started, now like it takes like a red day for me to realize, let's reflect back and see what's going on here. Are conditions changing again? What do I need to change to adapt to these conditions? Tear down until I start getting consistency back, and then start scaling back up. And I don't know
Yeah.
if Rose is doing a similar thing or.
Rose, so hang on. I accidentally muted you in Skype. Like I was trying, I heard the background noise. I was messing around with it. Can you chat through? Um, Sorry for the technical issues. Can you unmute yourself in Skype? You're muted, so just click on unmute, and that should fix it. There you go. You're good.
Okay, there we are. Yeah, you always have to be changing and or adapting rather. So, like Magnesian type of environment where you really have to have a lot more discipline, and if over trading is kind of been an issue, which for me it is, when especially when it's kind of counterintuitive, because if the market's more difficult and things are more difficult, you want to scale back your trading. But that there's this yin yang that happens, especially if you start to get frustrated, where you're up for the morning and then you lose part of it or you lose all of it, you want to get it back. So there's this tendency on the psychological side to perhaps overtrade when the environment's not conducive for it. And we all go through that. And one thing I did with a friend of mine who's also a trader is we were talking a few days ago about, can you just sit there all day and watch the market and not take a single trade? And I was like, I don't know. But you know what? That would be really good training. It would be really good practice to break that neurological connection in our brain, because it's, scalping is a very click, reward, dopamine hit, click type of thing that we can get into by the very nature of scalping. It can be habit forming, it can be prone to addiction, that sort of thing, which is basically overtrading, quote, bending. So you're always trying to balance that. You're always trying to keep that in check. And sometimes, you're just doing great and you can walk away when you're supposed to, you can quit when you're supposed to, and other times we kind of lose some of that self-control. So one thing, if you just sit there all day and just like don't take a single trade, you're training yourself, yeah, I can do that. So I thought, well, what if tomorrow, okay, Friday, usually Fridays are difficult, like, yeah, okay, I'll just, won't trade tomorrow, or I'll just, I'll just try to like sit there and like, well, but what if it's like a really good day and I see like a trade I just know I could make money on? I said, so how about I can only take 10 trades? And so that was our, my buddy system was like, okay, you're only going to get 10 trades. That's it. So I had my 10 trades and like, okay. And I noticed when I was doing, knowing that I had this limit of only 10 trades for the entire day, it made me think a little bit more, pause a little bit more before entering a trade, because I didn't want to use up my trades. So it already provided a kind of like a structural framework for me to be more selective, which I should be anyway, right? And I might have missed one or two trades by being hesitant on what I normally would have taken, but I also probably kept myself out of a few trades I shouldn't have taken. So that actually kind of worked. So then that was the first 30 minutes of the day, and then I noticed the market really did shift after 10:10 in the morning. That it got a lot harder and the momentum wasn't there, and I could just see the shift. So I started paper trading, and I was losing on paper trading overall. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad it's paper trading. Then when the momentum started to come back and we had the big sell-off, I went to my buddy and I was like, hey, can I have another 10 trades? I'm like, I'm up on the first 10, so it was like, okay, you can have 10 more trades, but you can't lose more than half of what you're up. If you lose more than half, whether you only do one trade, you got to quit. Like, okay, all right, we'll do that.
Hmm.
So those 10 trades are definitely a little harder to make money on, but I increased my P&L by like 25%. I'm like, okay, well that's good. And then I'm like, okay, can I have another 10 trades for for power hours?
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, you can have another 10, but that's it, no more. And you then now you can only lose 25% of your P&L. So if you make more, then you gotta. And it was a day where we had more momentum, but um, I ended at my P&L day highs at the very end of the market, which again is not something I normally do. So maybe this helped me be a little more selective, help take smarter trades, help just add a little bit of that self-restraint, and not overtrading is one of my biggest issues. So maybe for people that have that problem, something like this might be helpful.
I think it could
I,
be. Go ahead, CT.
yeah, I mean, I think that it's especially when I saw you posted in Discord earlier, Rose, that it wasn't just like the 10 trades. You were going to then have like a give back limit on your next 10 trades that sort of, got smaller and smaller throughout the day. And I think that, Gator and I have talked about this before in previous shows, that really finding a set of rules for yourself to, when you make a mistake or have like a bad day, there's always, if you really think about it, you can always like think of, if I implemented this one rule, I could keep myself out of this problem in the future. So always like looking back at what a bad day might be, and finding a way to sort of adapt your rules or add in a criteria or something. I really love this, like what you're doing. I think that is exactly what every trader should be doing to improve themselves, because since we are our own bosses and we don't have somebody looking at what we're doing saying you should do more of this or less of this, we have to take that on ourselves, and it's not easy to do, but I think that that's essentially how we ensure our continued success.
Yeah, you're actually like taking like accountability and changing because you can't just trade all day. And that's some things that some of the people that are having a hard time with, like because we got ingrained when the market like never sat sideways. Like if you look at like a daily chart of the Qs or whatever, if I throw us out of the way here and just look at the Qs, like look at this crap, you know. And we generally trade like, I mean, there were some days back here that was like that. I remember some of this being hard in August in September. But look, you generally have a lot of up moves, and the market for the most part has been going up, so you've just been able to catch those moves. So after this plunge, and now we just get this crazy sideways action. Like look at this week. You had like inside day, inside day, inside day, kind of inside day. I mean, look at that. Like there's
Like
not.
big gap ups that
Yep.
reverse like the next day and stuff. It's definitely nuts.
It's just not as easy as it was to like make the money. And instead of being like I'm going to just double down because it has worked for me forever, you're actively being like, hey, I want to keep doing this. It's kind of like what me and Geronimo talked about on Wednesday's show, which if you haven't watched that and you're watching this, you should check that show out. Geronimo, amazing trader, has been trading for a long time, and some of the stuff that he said, about the traders that burned out and that didn't continue to do it. You're making a change so you can continue to be a trader and you can survive this, because you said at the beginning of the show it's about not losing it all. There's a reason 90 something percent of people fail. It's they can't adapt. It's like they can do it when it's really good, but what are they going to do to actually change and be good when it's hard and when things are difficult?
Yeah,
And you're,
and I think that we're doing at least I feel like I'm doing an outstanding job of turning what used to be maybe a year ago into like a market condition that would result in maybe more red days than I would like, and red weeks. Like I am definitely surviving, and like this week was a decent week. Last week was okay, not great. And I'm not having, big blowout weeks where I've got a lot of money to make back. So it feels good to confront a new challenge like this and know that, as what who's somebody in chat said, stuff like this can go on for a long time. To know that, we can make a living in these conditions, and we can adapt and thrive in these conditions if we have to. So it does feel good, and it's empowering.
Yeah, the market's always changing, and it can be more difficult. Like you're saying, CeeTee, some people that I'm listening to are saying, we can be in this at least till March, maybe even till June. So, it's like, okay, do I just not trade until June, or do I try to get something consistent that works with lower expectation, with fewer trades, with, like Gator was saying, we're not just getting those $2 2 point moves. We were so spoiled from last year, where just like you could just bend all day and you could just, take, and just make like a lot more than in,
Mm-hmm.
like the more you traded, the more you made. And now it's like the opposite. The more you trade, the more you give back. So, it's like, okay, well, can I just lower my expectations and be much more selective and maybe still be able to make something work when times are more difficult?
I'm having to do that on the macro level, like the micro level being the day. It's like the during a day, I used to be able to take big losses and it didn't affect me through the weeks. But now, like sometimes I would have big weeks and big red weeks, kind of like days. But now I'm much more flat when things are bad, like small green, small red, flat, as opposed to massive days in either direction. Like my good days were five figures and my bad days were five figures. Now, if it's a really good day, I'm gonna be able to smack it. But generally speaking, my days are more even in this market because the market is a more like selective market. So I'm having to do that. And instead of being like, man, I just blew out my account and now I have to restart and just pray the market gets good for a day or two so I can make all this back, I'm just like, well, I'm just going to sit here and make, it's like that picture that, we randomly show and I can't because I'm like showing Discord well, actually, I might be able to pop it up. I don't think I can. The How much you make and it adds up over a year. It's like I can be happy with making $500, $1,000, and $2,000, and I don't feel like a failure or like had a bad day or get mad about it. It's like I made $1,000, and I can kind of keep that in perspective now. Whereas like last year, it was like I almost wanted, not that I wanted to be red, but it was like I was cool with a $5,000 red day. I was like, whatever, it's $5,000. Like I make triple that. I don't care. Like, and that was my mindset.
And also to think of it, annualize it, 500 a day, that's 120K a year.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than a lot of people's jobs. 1,000 a day, that's what is that? 240,000 a year. I
Mm-hmm.
can live off that. 2,000 a day, that's 500,000. I can really live off that,
Mm-hmm.
So, put it in perspective. Put it in perspective and, like really appreciate what the market gives you. And like a lot of people, $500 is it's only $500. A lot of times I'm like, it's only $500. Like, what do I care? But annualize it. So that's yeah, that's and then it's this cycle that we're in. So if you make whatever in the cycle we're in, and when things get better, then then great.
Yeah, and that's such a great point, Rose. I think that we're kind of always pounding this into people's heads, or at least I am, that you really need to not be hyper focused on how you're doing on a particular day, but instead zoom out and look at the macro picture and realize that, even if you're not having these huge days like we do when the market's ripping or tanking, the end result of consistently stacking, these moderate days really does end up in us having a very nice year if we're diligent about it.
And a nice weekend month because like moderate, I can't remember a month where I didn't, maybe it was the last week of the month or a middle week, and then it got bad. But there's almost always a week or a day when you get some moves that you can really bank on. Like, I was like average, and then all of a sudden it's just like, bam, okay, there it is. And when I was trading super aggressive, when the market didn't call for it, those really good days, when they didn't come as much during the month, all they did was get me back to flat or kind of flat. Now, or hopefully if we get one this month, because I had a really good last week of January, and February's been crap. Like I'm flat all of February. Like I would be considered like flat, maybe red in February. I'd have to go look at them. Just like, I have some really good days, but I'm just kind of keeping it flat and steady. My tier downsides there, I got no conviction in the names. It's just been difficult trading, and when it's difficult, you start questioning yourself. Like I'll start questioning myself. Like, am I like, I don't know if I can take this. I don't know if I'm going to get the chance to make it back. It's kind of like, I'm so like, I'll think through that. So I'm like overly cautious. And so I recognize that in myself. And I'm just like, hey, I'm just going to like try to get my confidence that I can still make good trades. I'm going to still try to catch these moves. Okay, I can catch them. And I'm just trying to keep my confidence in a hard market for next week or the week after. Well, what happens if Monday the Fed comes out and they're like, yeah, we're going to raise interest rates early? You know what the market's going to do? Like, I want to be ready for whatever the market gives me when it gives me the chance to make the money, as opposed to destroying my month, and then whenever that one good week happens of the month, or that 2 or 3 days, I'm not giving it all, like, okay, now I'm back to flat and break even.
Yeah, I mean, definitely if we stick around and trade intelligently and rack up consistent days, we always get those days where there's a great day of trading out of nowhere, and great, you just made in one day what you made in 2 weeks. And so, and like you said, if you are trading smart and not digging yourself a hole because you're using the wrong strategy for the environment, then that one day doesn't get you back to flat. That one day doubles your month.
Yep. And then you feel amazing about your month, and I'm a good and then you go into the next month. And this goes into what Magic just said, which is what I do too, and which is when I lose. If you look in chat, he said he tries to keep slamming after a few good trades and he gets wrecked. I have found the same thing, because it's like you get a little bit of confidence, and then you just start, like, you're like, here we go. And the market hasn't given us a here we go in February yet. Like, I don't think, like, unless you count the AFRM short when they accidentally released their early earnings in the middle of the day, like, there wasn't anything that happened that you could really continuously bend into and make good money. Like today, kind of, but even today, unless you just held, the options weren't moving amazing. Like I made a little bit today, but the options weren't great. And I do that same thing, and it was something I was thinking about. It was like, when I start winning, I think that I've got something figured out. And I don't know what you two, I'd like to hear both your thoughts on this, is when you start putting together those wins, it's almost like you start taking more risk, or you feel like that okay, you're good now, and maybe you break a few rules to take a trade, that there's something that starts happening there when I like get back to, like, maybe I'm down 2 grand and then I'm chopping back up and now I'm a little bit green. Like there's something that happens where I give it back, and it's almost like a confidence, like maybe I'm taking trades I shouldn't because I'm getting confidence. Okay, I'm making money now. Okay, now I can hit it. And it's kind of like that bad habit of bending is like trying to sneak like back in there and like hit me in the back of the head. I don't know. I'd like to hear Rose and CeeTee what you kind of.
I just had that happen this week. A few days ago, I had my best day of the year, and followed up by the very next day with my worst day. So, and it was a combination of being overconfident, and I had started to take a little more size, and then I was thinking, okay, yeah, so you want to have these, you need to take more size, but it has to be the right time to take that more size. It has to be, you have to really think about, okay, maybe I made really a lot on this day or at this time because of this very special circumstance that in the next day is completely different. is, it's not the same. You kind of try to take the same size, try to repeat what you did yesterday, and you're having yourself in a big hole. So, and also I think psychologically, you feel like you have extra money, extra cushion. You feel like, I can afford to take some risk because I just made all this money yesterday. And that definitely was a factor for me. And again, it's like not appreciating that on an annual level. Oh, do I want to risk $500,000? Do I want to risk $1 million annually, and give back my entire day I made yesterday, or whatever it is, or $2 million? Then it's like, oh no, I don't. I don't want to get back $2 million. So
Mm-hmm.
um, that's yeah. I think it's psychologically where you're feeling like you've got room and cushion to take more risk. And also with me that day, I was extremely tired, very tired, and did not have good sleep. And I know that when I am sleep deprived, when I'm tired, and when I'm hungry, really affects my trading, like big time, seriously, where
Mm-hmm.
I become so much less averse to risk. If I'm tired, I don't, it's weird. It's like, I don't care. I just like totally effing don't care about taking losses, big losses, risking a lot of, I just like, I'm too tired. I'm literally like too tired to care. And it's really a weird place to be. Where I noticed repeatedly, I will have can have easily fall into a tendency of taking risk and excessive risk when I stressed and tired, and and that's weird. It is not, you have to catch yourself and like, okay, I'm really tired today. I need to make sure I don't take more than I'm gonna take half my normal size, or something like that. You have to have some sort of check in place. Like, I'm not going to slam anything today because I'm tired, and I'm just because I'm tired.
Well, this is actually interesting because Gator, your what you said and what Rose said both kind of touch on two things that I wanted to talk about today. Um, so Rose, what you're talking about, how you're starting to identify certain conditions that where you start to maybe get a little sloppy, and something that I think is like for me personally, what I'm experiencing is, a couple things I struggle with are obviously everybody, starts drifting into tilting from time to time, and also like the excessive give back. So sort of what Gator's talking about, and also Rose, what you're talking about. And I feel like I'm getting better at identifying myself sliding into like that mindset sooner. And it's all it's I never, I still, have, I might give back some money, but what I'm finding is I'm getting faster and faster at identifying, when I'm starting to take sloppy trades, or when my mindset, something like what Rose is talking about, maybe I'm tired or I'm just not in the right mindset to do that, to trade, as proficiently as I possibly can. And it's really easy to beat yourself up when when you slip into that mode. So kind of what I'm trying to embrace is the philosophy that, you know these problems that we struggle with as traders, be them, give back or tilting or trading when our psychology isn't right. It's not like we can just say, oh, this is a problem, I'm going to flip a switch and like, no, I won't do that anymore. It's going to be something that you're going to struggle with over time, and I think we just have to accept that we're going to make incremental improvements and not beat ourselves up, um, if we encounter that problem again, but rather just strive to identify, our psychology or whatever the condition might be, identify it sooner, so you take less trades before you say, oh, I recognize what's happening right now. And like what Gator, you're talking about, how sometimes when you start out the day red and then you claw back to break even and then you get up some money, like I certainly struggle with doing that and then going back to red, which is just freaking ridiculous. Like that's the dumbest thing you could possibly do. And like a couple of weeks ago, I had I was down 5 grand, got myself up a couple grand, and then went all the way back down to like 4,500. And I've talked about this before. That's like the shittiest feeling ever. Is when you went red to green and then back down to your day lows, that's just the most toxic. It's like having 2 red days, not just one. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's so toxic. And so, like, I had a day this week, my one red day this week. I started out like down a couple grand. I got myself up to like just over a grand, and then even making small trades, I ticked back down to break even, and then I started to go red, and I got down to like 700 negative, and I stopped myself. And in like, obviously I was beating myself up that night. I'm like, dude, you really messed up. You were up a grand and you could have just walked away, and instead you had a red day. But I'm trying to be sort of compassionate with myself and my growth and realize, like, you know what, you didn't get back to day lows. You recognized what was happening sooner and you stopped yourself. And that's a step in the right direction. And so I think that probably everybody, could benefit from trying to make incremental changes to their psychology and sort of what they're doing when they're making mistakes, because it's not, most of these things you can't just fix by flipping a switch. Like, it's going to be something that you need to improve over time. And we need to keep our psychology as positive as possible. So congratulate yourselves for identifying the problem sooner and mitigating the damage from it, and realize that everything's a process, and that we're going to be struggling with various psychological or things like this for as long as we do this. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, isn't that like discipline? Like, if you're going to start working out or doing something, who are the people like on a diet or something like that that burn out the quickest? It's the people that like don't take it gradually, and instead they just go full on and they don't give themselves any mercy. They don't understand that discipline is a lifestyle, that choosing to change, or in this case trading habits, is not a one day one thing. It's like an actual change in mindset, change in reward, and like in your head and how you view things. And it actually takes time to have that happen. Like, it's not just necessarily going to happen overnight. Like, you actually have to do what you did, and like Blademan is saying, be self-aware and continue to actually improve yourself over the course of time. It's like what Rose is doing with her daily, like, I'm not going to trade today. I'm going to sit here and watch. I'm going to force myself to be chill. I'm only going to take 10 trades. I'm going to be very disciplined. Discipline takes time. It takes like an accumulation of continuously doing things and changing how you see things and changing how your body takes these reward structures, to where $1,000 day or just taking smart trades is what you're mentally rewarding yourself for, and not making 5 figures is not what you're rewarding yourself for mentally. And you're not chasing that number. Instead, you're trying to find good trades. You're identifying the market that you're in. You're, okay, this is a good trade for this market. Okay, I'm good. Hey, I was down 5 grand and I got back, 2 grand positive. Sure, I could keep trading and make not, but like, I've traded smart. I've gotten to this point. Who cares if I can make more or not? I'm going to lock it in. Like, these are habitual habits that you actually have to practice in order to get good at. And you're going to fail, and it's going to be okay. But the worst thing to do would have been, if you got 700 down, to be like, I know I can get it, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to hit it, and then 2 grand, and then 3 grand, and then 5 grand. And then even if you came back, like how I look at it as, and what's kind of changed me, or what I'm trying to change is, if I'm down 5 grand, and then I make 5 grand back, and then I'm down another 5 grand, then I make 5 grand back, and then I'm down 5 grand, and I make another 5 grand back. That's 15 grand. Like, I could have made it in a day, and instead I haven't made anything. And it's like, what the heck? It's like, I'm flat, and I've made the same 5 grand and lost it 5 times. It's like, yo, like, why can't I just figure out why I'm losing this? Like, for crying out loud.
And
So,
it's like so toxic for your psychology to go through
yeah.
that roller coaster. Like, why do we put ourselves through that? It's brutal. Like,
And then when you go
so
back and you review your trades, you're like, these weren't even good trades.
Yeah, none of us have a problem making money. Making money's not the problem. It's like limiting the losing. That's where, when you add up, like you did one time, Gator, all the money you make during the day, let's say by the end of the day you're green $500, but you're like, look, I made 15,000. It's like, or 20,000. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
happened? Like, what happened?
Yep. What happens is you tilt it in the middle of your trading. It was like in a market like this, you over traded. You lost the discipline. You started looking at the money or something like whatever it is. And I've been trying to put my thumb on it because I notice it happen to myself. So I'm trying to figure out what it is. And I'm trying to be like, it's this. And I think it's the bending coming back in the middle of making money because used to how you would make money, and it's still going to get back to that way. Like, let's be honest, it's going to go through cycles and it's going to come back to when that happens. But it was like if you made money on 4 or 5 setups and a name, you just hit that name hard and you win it. Right now, it's like if you make 4 or 5, you don't, oh, wait, it could break down here. It could break down here. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it. It's no, no, no. You completely leave it alone and you let it reset. Like if it's in a range trade, you let it go back up or you let it go without you. You wait for the next setup and you take it. What it used to be was just, it's going, it might go, I'm going to take it. And it's like maybe that's sneaking in and kind of like dragging me back in, and it's stopping me from having very, very good days because I don't think there's a day this week that I haven't made over 10 or over 5 figures. However, I haven't. Did I have? I think I had one 5 figure day this week, and I'm flat on the week because I lost that on like another day or something. Like I'm very flat. I don't know if exactly if I'm red or green. Very flat on the week, and it's literally because of that, honestly, or that's kind of part of it. And what you're saying, CT, that discipline is just that practicing good habits and habitually changing over time is what's going to get you there. Maybe just have your cat enter the trades for you.
Yeah, the one of the things that I've really been striving for is to keep my red days smaller than like one average green day,
Hmm.
and I feel like I've been doing a great job of that. Like I will stop myself if I start to go red to a point that that isn't like conducive to like me making it back just the next day. So there's just constantly identifying these little tweaks you can make to your business plan to make yourself more successful. And like what Rose is doing, I think it's so great. Like I think every trader should be doing something similar, like making rules for yourself that you can stick to. And every time you run into a road bump in your trading, finding a rule that you can implement that can keep you out of that trouble in the future. That's You just got to be doing that forever, I think, as a trader.
Because let's be honest. Or go
And
ahead.
if holding yourself to that is a problem because, let's say you're, like very undisciplined, which I would consider myself at times that way, then, at times, then you can have a buddy system, have somebody else to help keep you accountable. There was a time when I reported my P&L to a third person, a third party, a good friend, every day. And it was simply to keep myself accountable so if I had a big, massive losing blowout day, I had to tell her about it, and that was embarrassing. It's like, yeah, I lost some crazy amount of money. And then that's like explain, okay, this is what happened. And it would also motivate me to want to tell her, I would get on like these green streaks and she'd be like, oh, another green day. It would kind of like motivate me, like to really not want to have, to not. So there is something to that too. And I know one trader or one quote guru guy says that he's like, oh, don't ever trade with your own money because with your own money, you're not accountable. If you trade with like the firm's money or you trade with, the firm's money, that you're more accountable. You're less prone to take, a lot of risk or tilting and that sort of stuff. So there is an element to that when you're trading your own money and you have that privacy and you have that anonymousness that nobody knows what you're doing. Not even your wife, nobody knows what you're doing. You can literally do anything. There's no accountability except for between you and your bank account or you and your trading account. So and it also comes down to your personality type. If you're more prone to gambling, more prone to addiction, more prone to tilting, then get another person involved. Make yourself accountable in whatever way that is. But it's got to be somebody that's, understands and isn't going to be a negative, toxic thing like, oh, you screwed up today. Somebody that's supportive that will, but somebody that that you can check in with and just have that accountability. And I think there's definitely something to that.
Well, I think that's a common thing that I hear a lot of people say is that there are certain personality types that do trade better when they're using somebody else's money because, for exactly the reason you said, that they feel like they can't be as sloppy as if they were trading their own money. And like personally, my dream is to someday pay like a programmer to make an AI that will crunch all the statistics of my trading, like, and essentially like be able to like machine learn what, like, to be able to tell me like, bro, like statistically I've crunched the numbers and this is when you need to stop. Like, because there's really too many variables, I think, for us to really take them all in and like recognize all this stuff. We can try our best, but it's a struggle. And something tells me that there's probably, like, if we had a computer crunching the numbers for us that just said you have to stop, like statistically, like this is the point where you're going to start losing money, that would be pretty awesome. But someday.
One day. I mean, with the way that machine learning's working, you'll probably be there. Like Elon's going to design something soon that it'll be able to do that.
Well, I mean, a lot of businesses use like AI to analyze statistics and performance to see patterns that humans can't recognize. And I think that probably there's a lot of patterns that we're not able to recognize because it's too complex. And that's just something that I dream about. Like,
And when you're in the middle of it, especially too, when you're like
yep.
right in the middle of it, you're tunnel vision, you're locked in, you're not looking at, the bigger picture. But also, like another trader I was talking to said, like, if you could have like a tilt meter or tilt alert, so like as you're tilting, taking, like a big alarm goes off and it's like bling bling bling, trader taking a trade every minute, a trader taking, it's like to have some sort of warning bells, and then the intervention comes in and he grabs him out of the chair.
You're out here.
Locks the door to the crisis intervention to come in and just like pull the plug on the computer. And
yep.
I definitely am starting to recognize, like, I'm getting really, like, within like maybe 2 to 3 trades, I'm starting to recognize when I start going down that road. And it really is a struggle, and I think it takes a lot of practice to be able to start to identify what's happening in your brain when you start diverging like that. And I don't know, Gator, what's your thoughts on it?
You do start feeling it, you know. Like I feel like you know it, but you almost like don't accept it or something. Or you like lie to
Totally.
yourself in the middle of it. And to be honest, you know, and Geronimo talked about this on Wednesday, like about how he talked a little bit about that, a little bit about like your attitude, a little bit about how you react, a little bit about tilting, and every trade you take should have in a sense, a plan and an idea of what you're doing, but a legitimate one, not a made up one. You know, and I feel like when I'm giving back and when I'm doing all this stuff, it's like I'm hoping and I'm like intuition guessing because I used to get paid for doing that because just the market was going up. And so it was like my guess is it was going up and I was right because it was going up. But now it's not just going up. And like this week, it's obviously going sideways. So there's got to be a reason that you take your trade. There's got to be a reason that you get in it. And you should see your money and your like what you're making. You should see that as like almost like your business. And I think Kelly has said that before. Like your trading is your business. It's not just to be spent and just to be blown, and it's important to have that accountability and that, like, even like with yourself, but with other traders, with other people who are actually going to care and hold you accountable. And so you can be honest, because we just lie to ourselves in the middle of our trading until it's not possible for us to lie anymore because we've like blown out everything.
Yeah, indeed.
And it's the people that change beforehand that actually can keep doing this.
Yeah, Geronimo's talks about psychology and sharing his journey have been gold recently. I've really been enjoying those, and you know, the way he talks about, you know, like an elite athlete or something, they're not going to hit, a home run every time they're at the plate, or they're not going to. Sometimes they strike out, but they're going to go home like feeling okay because they know that they put the time in training and they did everything right, and that nobody's 100% at everything. So it like red days or losing trades, whatever you want to say, like however you want to measure it, micro or macro, it never feels good, but it's a whole lot less bad if you know that you followed your trading plan and you took good trades. Like taking a good trade that doesn't work out doesn't feel so bad, but if you're kind of bending the rules and you have a losing trade, it obviously doesn't feel very like that feels pretty awful. So
Mm-hmm. It does. And maybe that's when I feel like the most toxic, like during this last week, like, and even the week before that. Like when I felt the worst was when I know that like I wasn't, or that I messed up and that I wasn't trading intelligently. It was like you totally broke rules there. Like you knew to wait till it hit VWAP and you didn't, because you're like, it could go down here. Like it's probably
yeah,
going to retest.
and those are the things that for me, like I think about those things like in the evenings after the market's closed, and it just eats me up. Like every mistake I make like that, where I know it was a mistake of discipline, not a mistake of strategy or business plan. And again, like I'm trying not to beat myself up over making mistakes, but rather just strive to make incremental improvements over time.
And just to Jess's comment, we've said it all the time, and Jr. said it. If you have to start telling yourself that you are tilting, or like, hey, stop this, or like, you once you start like correcting yourself, you've already tilted. Like you're already there. And that's kind of the trick. It's like stopping yourself from getting there. And I'm sure, Rose, that's kind of like what you were doing some today, and what we've been trying to do and focusing on is like you stop yourself from actually getting to the point where you're like, okay, I've got to change. I'm doing something wrong. It's like I've already blown up, or I've been taking these bad trades. It's identifying it before it gets there and starting to create those good habits earlier in the day over a long period of time is going to develop that to where you actually know if you're tilting or not. Because you tilted before you went red. You tilted before you took those bad trades. I don't know exactly what it was, but like you took a bad trade. You were focusing on the money. You were doing this or that. You didn't wait. Like something else was coming in your OODA loop in your decision
Yeah.
making process.
No, exactly. No, exactly. And usually it happens when you start to give back, when you start to get frustrated, when, the setup's there and you get a bad fill and then it whips against you, just like, and then, or you took more size because you knew this is like a really good setup. And then that starts this spiral that can happen. And then, so you take a good size loss, and then first instant reaction is want to get it back, and like the trade setup is still there. So then you want to get back in it, and you're in an emotional reactionary state versus a logical state. Like, why did that not work? Like what happened there? And maybe I need to wait for confirmation. I need to wait for a better setup, or, what's the different in the market to why that didn't work versus that instinctual emotional reaction of or the initial frustration. So and some people are more able to catch themselves in that, and either get up, go for a little walk or whatever, or just get some fresh air, then come right back, just breaks that emotion, that tunnel vision, when that. So you might could have like a tilt intervention where, like, anytime you take a loss that's a little bit more uncomfortable, you have to, like, standard procedure is get up, go outside, take a deep breath, and then come back and sit down. Even if you feel fine, even if you're not emotionally upset, but just as like standard procedures, so that the times when it does affect you, you're already in that habit pattern to get up. Maybe you could set a dollar amount, anything more than $300 or whatever. You got to go take a deep breath out of your seat, outside. Can't do it in your room, and then get back to your seat, just to break that. And I think when I reflect on that, if I had done that, if I had done that when I was having difficult times, that would have made actually a really big difference. Just simply getting up after taking a loss that, I wasn't comfortable with, and taking a deep breath outside and then coming back would have saved me literally thousands of dollars. And I'm like, okay, if somebody paid me to go breathe 10 times outside, $1,000 each time, yeah, I'd do it.
And
I
what?
think.
Go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, I think that essentially what the kind of what's at the core of that is that when you are starting to get frustrated with like a losing trade, or things not working, that instead of like stepping back and processing your emotions and what's happening, chemically in your body and like psychologically, we're just we're able to ignore all of that stuff because we're so focused on the charts and the market and what you're talking about. So like getting the charts out of your vision and getting out of the room if necessary, so you can process, oh, how do I feel, how's my psychology, how does my body feel, how does, and you can start thinking about those things. And it's just when you've got, you know 20 charts in front of you and a trading platform, it's just way too easy to ignore all of the stuff that's happening inside of you and be totally focused on the externalities of the market. So I think that's a spectacular idea for people to who are struggling in any way to when they have a losing trade or when they go red, whatever it might be, to step away and think about what's going on. How are you feeling? How's your psychology? Process everything, and you can't really do that with a bunch of charts in your face, in my opinion.
Yeah, and when you're in the thick of it, you're not going to do it. It's the last thing you want to do is get up and leave your computer. So you have to train yourself before you're in that situation emotionally, when it's not an emotional, impactful event, when it's just like maybe minor and you're like, I'm still fine, I'm not tilting, but you do it anyway to establish that habit. So then when you do have that one that did get you emotionally upset, it's much easier for you to get up and go do it because you did it on all the ones where it wasn't, that bad. It's just like a normal loss or whatever. So, I mean, not like 20, like it's got to be more than 20, but, whatever, because, you'd be doing that all day.
Mm-hmm.
But,
it's like every time you lose, you have to go get a kettlebell and you have to do a full-on workout. So it's like you have to do a full Tabata workout as soon as you're done. 10 curls or something like that. And you just hit it hard every time. And so if nothing else, you're going to get in shape. So it's like I had a losing day. It's like, yo, CT, why are you so yoked, dude? It's like, I had a really bad week, man.
I made the gains, but not the kind of type I want.
Yeah. It's like when I start getting skinny again, but it's like, I can't. I just keep. But it's true. Like, stepping away. You're here. You're emotionally invested. You don't even realize, like, it's like you realize, but you just don't, and you just keep doing the stupid stuff that made you take that loss, and you don't actively change or take a step back to realize what you've done, to reset, to go back to 0-0, like you just struck out. Like CT, you do the whole, like, if you lose and you're trying to front run something, like 3 strikes and you're out type thing. It's like you're not trying to get, like, you're like, no, I'm going to keep swinging at this. And you just keep, like, digging that hole. It's like, step back, go outside, take a breath. Maybe do some push-ups or something. Maybe go just breathe, look outside, get some fresh air. Who cares if you miss a move? You know how many moves happen? If you continue to do this over your life, how many moves are going to happen and you're worried about missing one of them on a day? That's probably why you missed it, or why you went red in the first place, is because you were afraid that that trade was going to go without you. And so instead of waiting for the good setup and the right trade, you're just like, I'm in. And you lost. And now you think it's going to happen again. And even if it does happen, you're not thinking clearly, and you're not taking a trade based on, like, you know, what you should be taking a trade on.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things with me that causes over trading is FOMO, fear of missing this move, this mythical move that's about to happen. And it's hard sometimes to put yourself in the bigger perspective, think like, you know what, the stock market's not going anywhere. It's not going to be, it's going to be here for the rest of the year. It's going to be here for several years, the rest of my lifetime, most likely. So there's always going to be another move, and I don't necessarily have to get the very next one.
Yeah,
But
I mean, if you're sticking around like all day for like year after year waiting for that Amazon split or whatever, but you're giving back like $1,000 every afternoon as a result, like in 6 months, like you're gonna be break even. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's and I think that that's something that a lot of people, learned the hard way.
Yeah, let's be honest. Amazon's going to announce that in the off hours, so I can't make any
Oh
money on
yeah,
it anyway.
they're definitely not gonna do that when we're online.
Yeah, that.
The okay, so just I'm going to throw one other thing out there, and I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on this, which is that something that I found myself doing this week that's really helped me, I think, is I've given these market conditions and given that we're having to be way more selective with our trades and maybe watch for more confluence of levels and indicators and things. I've been narrowing my focus a bit and trading fewer names and focusing on the names that I'm extremely familiar with. And even if there's news or like if another name might be doing something good, I might just ignore it and stay focused more on the names that I really know inside and out. And that I think has helped me be a lot more consistent. Like this past week and even the week before, I think is whereas I used to be all over the place in the morning, like when the market was hot, I would jump around, you know, just super fast between names, taking trades, then back to another name, then to this name. And uh, sometimes with names you're not familiar with, and it's fine, you're making money. But for me, just sticking to the names that I am super, super comfortable with has really improved my consistency this week. And I don't know if you guys have been doing something similar or what your strategy has been.
I'll let you go, Rose. I mean, I know I have. Like, there's a
um,
reason I say Google every morning.
yeah, I basically pretty much only trade about three names, and that's just kind of, I guess, I just kind of like learn how they trade, and sometimes that's, I think, to my detriment because they're not quote in play, and I'm like still stuck on those three names versus trying to find something that's moving a little bit better. But I know, but it's like, what do I need? When I jump around to too many different stocks, then I don't. That's usually sometimes where I get hurt really badly is because I, don't know how this stock trades. And I'm like, whoa, what just happened? So I kind of like just sticking to a very small handful of names, and then when they have, setups, I don't need much. I don't need like, always to be catching all these different moves. I just need, some decent moves out of something a few times during the day, and that's your whole day. So, um, yeah, for me, I prefer to just focus on a few names.
I'm the same. Like, the one name I've kind of avoided is Tesla, just because it's kind of like it was at the beginning of January, where it's just like, I'm leaving this name alone for like 3 weeks. I'm gonna wait. That's kind of where I'm at with it now. It's the candles aren't moving enough. It's all like $1 to $2 moves. It's like it needs like a three, four, $5 move per candle to really pay me like I like. So
Yeah, I feel like we've maybe gotten like two or three good trades in Tesla each day, and
mm,
then that's it for like the day if you're really into the Momo trades.
yeah, for momentum trades without a doubt. And so what I've been doing is Google, Amazon, and technically Tesla. And I actually tried the cues. I'm practicing on the cues now, based on Geronimo's calls and levels. And I've made some trades in it. I'm figuring out the cues and the strikes. I'm still working on that. I'll probably do some videos on that in the future. But I'm watching those. But yeah, if you add the cues to it, I do, generally speaking, for the most part, three names: Google, Amazon, and Tesla. And I just look for the market. I watch the cues and I see what they're doing in correlation to that. So it's like today, I think early on, it was like if all the names, if Google is like below VWAP in the 200 and sitting there and the cues are going up and it's not moving, I'm like, okay, you know what I'm doing? I'm waiting for the cues to hit something that's considered resistance and they're going to pull down. As soon as it hits that, I'm shorting Google because Google never popped and got above anything. It's the same thing with Amazon, and I'm really only doing two or three names. It's not that there aren't other names, but I'm just so comfortable trading those three names that I'm just waiting for something that I know how to trade in those names to happen. And the only name I'm expanding on is because of the amazing stuff JR is doing and kind of talking about the levels and the pivots and just the market overall, that I'm beginning to watch the cues and the options to learn how they trade and what I need to do to win in them, because I feel like I'm missing an opportunity there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really like also what JR is doing with the Qs. I did a whole day one time of just doing Q trades. He does, I think, commons. I was doing the options on them, and that was definitely really interesting. And they have a whole whole personality of themselves, where they trade differently, way differently, like a Tesla. But and then sometimes, most of the time, I'll take, if I am doing Tesla, I will try to trade Tesla off the Qs. But Tesla has definitely been tracking the Qs a lot more than it used to, but it's still a different, there's still nuances to it. You can't just do it like the same as like with an Amazon and with the Qs, because Tesla has more of its own choppiness that it will do despite what the Qs are doing. So if you are small enough size and you can give it the room, if that's the type of trade you're doing, and its behavior. But there's other things that you can do with the cues, but like off of the cues. But and then how big of a move do you need? Sometimes like with a Tesla, you need a pretty big move in the cues to get that reaction. But whereas if you're just doing the cues, you can scalp 15-20 cents and be just fine, but that won't have any effect on Tesla perhaps. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, it's true. And sometimes Tesla goes with it, sometimes it doesn't. It's like you try to figure out when it is, and then you lean into it. If it's moving with the cues, you trade it, but it's kind of been doing its own thing. And for you guys who are in chat, you can type questions and we'll answer them if you have any. If not, we'll just keep talking. Um, just to let you know, I mean, we've been going for about an hour and 20 minutes, so if y'all do have questions, feel free to throw them in, and we'll try to get to them. Um, as a quick question, know something you said, does JR have a YouTube channel? Yeah, it's called Rooftop Trader, but he doesn't post in there. He's in the T3 live newsbeat room. If you want to know about that, hit me up in Discord. And Praveen, what did you say? Yeah, I agree with ATR. I've started to kind of watch ATR too, especially in names. I don't know if Rose or CT, if y'all have kind of done that, but like ATR and Tesla is key, because I've noticed it does trade like the Qs and other names. I don't know if y'all have noticed it too. It's like, yeah, it made the move. It just took longer. And like on these smaller ATR moves, like it gets there, but I'm just not used to trading it that way.
Okay, so I have a question about ATR for those of you who've been using it, which is essentially, if we think of explosive moves in terms of compression and expansion, when something's compressing is typically when you can expect a big move to happen, and then when it expands, I guess the ATR is going to increase, right? So the question being is, do you feel like ATR is, I mean, clearly most of the indicators we use are lagging indicators, but it seems like that in particular, by the time you start seeing the ATR goes up, you may have missed the move. Or are you watching like the ATR compressing and then expanding and sort of using that the way we would use stochastics?
I would say, trying to catch the initial move, especially on a Tesla, is what's caused me to have a lot of losses, and that it's better to wait for that. Just for me, it's best Tesla to be in a strong trend, either up or down. If it's in this ranging or you're trying to catch that initial break of a move of a direction, you can get chopped up so badly. And the ATR can keep you out of that because if that ATR is below two, it's but once it makes that bigger move, then that ATR is going to go up. So it's usually like you're saying, CT, after the fact, where it already, and a lot of times Gator's doing that too, where he's waiting for the move to already happen, and then you play the subsequent setups after that move. And sometimes if it's the wrong time of day, there really aren't many subsequent moves after that, and you just like missed it. But in the morning, sometimes you can still get a few more setups on it. So we're in the after power hour. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. ATR needs to be above two, or it's just sort of not worth it again.
And is that a time frame dependent indicator? Or are you looking at that on like a 1 minute time frame, or how are you using that? Because I'm sure people in chat or people watching are interested to know as well.
That's a good question. I guess it is different on a 2 minute versus 1 minute, isn't it? I think I'm mostly looking at it on the 2 minute. But you can also probably do it on the 1 minute. If it's like above a two, because then it's just like it's been in that more volatile state for longer time. If it's on the 2 minute. So
I use it kind of like I use stochastics, in the way of like when it's starting, like, hey, this might not work now. It's like as the ATR starts dropping towards like the end of a move, that's when I'm like, oh, I'm done. And then like in the middle of the day, that's kind of when I'm like, there's no ATR here. I'm staying away from Tesla. And then yeah, if it breaks out and it starts expanding even a little bit, like I agree with what you're saying, CT, that there's like a delay, so it like doesn't get good until you've missed 4 or 5 moves or whatever. But earlier on, it keeps me out of the middle of the day stuff, and then it lets me know kind of it's starting to drop here. The moves are less. So it's like that extra, like, not very high conviction warning signal, but like the little spidey sense of like, ooh, my ATR is really dropping. That's why I'm not making money. These candles aren't moving as much. I'm near resistance. I'm just going to stay away from this. So it's like that extra little like warning thing that's there that you don't really need, but it's like, oh, that's why it didn't work. The candles aren't moving.
yeah, low ATR equals chop. Basically, like the lower the ATR, the more chop you have.
Okay, and it looks like Praveen posted some settings, some TC2000 settings here for it.
Mm-hmm.
So Praveen, you're doing like a 10 bar moving average of the ATR essentially, and is if I'm reading that right on the 1 minute time frame. And like Praveen, tell us where, or maybe Rose and Gator, maybe you want to talk about this too. Where do you plot that on your chart? Like, are you overlaying that over the volume with your stochastics? Where are you putting that?
Oh, it just pops up as another little window on the bottom of your chart.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Peter, are you doing a similar thing? Like you have a totally independent like window on your chart for that?
Yeah, you can do it that way. Or you can have it set up as a line, using a bar, I believe. So let's see if I can set it up on this one the way he did it.
Yeah, with mine, it's just a line graph on the bottom of my chart.
Oh, Praveen, that's interesting. So you're using this on your watch list. I think I might like that
Oh, that's it.
Yeah,
better than taking up more chart real estate because I feel like my charts are a little cluttered now that we're using stochastics.
I can get my
I
charts.
like that a lot.
Yeah, and it's just like a number off to the side. Let's see if I can. You did it in your column. I'm seeing how you did it. But yeah, okay. But yeah, so I'll mess with this and maybe post another um, shared thing to it for the column to just add that extra little percent thing there, and then you can scroll through your watch list and see what the ATR is. And that's helpful too, because if you go to your like delta on your like options, and you know it's only moving a certain amount per candle, you can kind of tell like, oh, it's only moving this amount. The options might only move this amount, so it can kind of give you that little bit of extra indicator of what you can make or
Nice. I like
what you
that.
can expect.
Cool. Yeah, I was reluctant to add something that's going to take up any chart real estate, but I think I can sacrifice one column in my watch list.
I'm looking forward to getting a new. I'll have to post like a setup or something when I get my new house and you know new monitors and stuff at what it looks like. Like I'm looking forward to getting a little bit more real estate, screen real estate, and like a few extra monitors that I can more for the zoomed out stuff because everything I have now is like 1 and 2 minute, and then I do have my 4 time frame thing. I'm like, man, I could have a few of these other things that I'm looking for where I could do a little bit of drawing, where I could do some of this other stuff, and I don't do it now because I use my things specifically. And I don't have any like quote unquote wasted space. And I'm like you, I'm like hesitant to throw stuff out there just to throw it out there. And I don't like changing stuff because it's like as you're learning something new, you almost like go through a losing period or like a the learning period, and it makes trading almost hard.
Yeah, can you actually pop over to my charts for a second, Gator?
Yeah.
So just to show an example of I've been doing this for a while here, is that I'll have like my regular one which has like my nine chart layout and then my 4 chart focus over here. And then what I've been doing, I guess for a couple months now, is I'll keep popping over to something like this where these are all 2 minute time frames and all that's on here is like the 200, the 8 and the 21, and all like this is clearly too grainy to be doing scalps off of, but like this is helping tremendously for me to recognize what's happening on the macro intraday stuff. And like what you were saying, how like drawing your trend lines and spotting bigger formations and whatnot on something like this is super helpful. And I know for me, I've already got a ton of real estate, but when we move, I am definitely going to dedicate an extra monitor to just having this up right here because I feel like this is about how zoomed out you have to be to start spotting a lot of the stuff that like Geronimo talks about. And just tabbing over to this chart like every 10 minutes or 15 minutes has helped my trading immensely because when I'm looking at this type of stuff here, which is like what I need to see to scalp, I am really losing out on a lot. And I also find that looking at, we can look at our 15 minutes and our 5 minutes and whatnot, but looking at a 2 minute chart that's zoomed out, I think it's a little bit easier to spot things that are happening. So for me, I found that to be super helpful, and it sounds like everybody is sort of moving in that direction, which is nice.
Yeah, I'm definitely moving and planning on moving kind of in that direction with my stuff. Like I really want to get that and be able to kind of have that view of everything just because I think there's a like you're saying there's a lot to that and there's a lot we're missing out on when we're not doing that. And I was looking at AMD today and a few other names later when I wasn't trading, I was just watching and I was like, "Huh." And you could see the measured moves that were happening like perfectly. And you could see a bunch of other stuff like trends that were setting up and I was like, "Huh." I'm like, "I know I can learn to make money in this other stuff. I need to be looking at these larger time frames on these things and these levels that are hitting because you can just start to recognize the patterns." And I don't know about you two. Do you either of y'all like watch other or read other YouTube slash like I don't know trading stuff apart from Mark and apart from the stuff that we do here? Like, is there specific? I know you're in Scott Redler's room, CT, but like, um, generally speaking, is there? Do either of y'all do like a bunch of other stuff out there?
I've watched a couple of like maybe a handful, five of like the Oliver Vella's videos, and I've got some of his books that I'm starting to dig into. I think that there's a lot to be learned from that, especially given the success that we've seen Kelly have with that, and also incorporating like fib lines and stuff, and his little unique twist on it. But I haven't spent a ton of time watching YouTube videos of gurus. I don't. That's not my thing at all. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
Rose. What's your experience been?
Yeah, I'm just starting to also venture expanding my education on more levels. I noticed that certain C strategies work really, really well when it's within, off of these key levels and chart patterns, key levels and chart patterns. And and sometimes maybe holding a little bit longer. It's not a C strategy, but I'm trying to integrate some of that, at least information of why certain levels are keys. And I do really like Oliver Velez's some of his stuff that goes into that. But again, it's a lot of time to watch hours and hours and hours of videos and then just like make notes and like really try to learn a certain strategy and then put it into practice. But there is one of that he talked about, how to play a gap up opening that worked extremely well on Google that I did the other day, and it was like, hey, I did a strategy that wasn't a C strategy, and it worked. That I definitely want to continue to, learn more about. It's not just levels, but it's also like the psychology of levels, because those levels represent things psychologically with the buyers and sellers, and that's why it's a significant level. So when you're talking about levels, you're really talking about market psychology. So it's sort of an interesting interesting part of that, but definitely always to just keep learning. There's just so much to learn. It's incredible.
And that's
I
what.
oh,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Gator.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, this and really the I'm not super like active and like I don't post or anything, but I do listen in like in the mornings to hear, what the swing trading guys are, how they're viewing the market, and I look at the charts they post to sort of see their perspective on things, because exactly what you're saying, Rose, is that um, we are like we learn to be profitable focused on such micro time frames, and I think it really does make us a lot better traders if we can recognize how the other participants in the market, like the market is not made up of everybody scalping. There's people who are doing stuff on bigger time frames, and if we understand the way they view the market, we can then use that lens to view our C strategies and sort of pick and choose where we want to implement our strategies and our small time frame scalps based on how we know that the rest of the market participants are viewing things.
Exactly. And also seeing how, with that knowledge, also prevents a lot of losses, because you're like, well, this is like an area it's likely going to be reversing. So I'm not going to try to take the next Mark 1 on this short, because this is probably an area where we're going to have, a good reversal or something like that, or topping out or consolidation. So it can keep you out of a lot of trades where, it's like in that zone where it's. So anyway, that's definitely a huge benefit if you to add that layer to what you're already doing. I do want to go back and answer a question here in the chat by Dar Trade. Let me go back to read it here. He or she is asking, how did you guys make that switch to build consistency? Like, you feel that time to change your mindset. We all know FOMO is real. I think everybody would just wish, just like, okay, I want to be consistent. I'm consistent now. It's more of something that is a process, and we're all striving for that. And even when you are technically consistent, there's inconsistency in the consistency. You might be consistent. Like, what's the definition of consistency for the year, for the month, for the week, or, so you're consistently green or whatever on average for a month, but then, you'll have a red week, or you'll have a red month within there. So there's always room within, the consistency and degrees of consistency. Are you consistent enough to make a living at it? Maybe that's the definition of consistency. But one thing to build it is recognize patterns, really observe, like, okay, am I usually green by 10 a.m. Eastern time? It might, no matter what amount, am I usually, this is a new spreadsheet that CeeTee started, what's my P&L at 10 o'clock, what's it at 11 o'clock, and what's it at, 4 o'clock. So kind of keeping a little track record. So if you're consistently usually green by 10 or 11 o'clock, but yet you're consistently, giving back your day by 4, well, you're consistently green by 10 o'clock. That's pretty good, so then maybe you want to just like accept that for the time being and say, well, I'm going to start locking that in, or even before 10, or if you're up $100, $200, if you quit right there, and if you do that for a week straight, you do that for a month straight, well, you've just been consistent for, a solid month, making whatever amount, $100 or $200. And again, it's not about the money, it's about the process. So you're proving to yourself that for a week, for a month, on average, you can be green. It doesn't even matter how much. So that's a really fast way to build consistency, is to lock it in, to quit trading. That's the easiest way to be consistent. That's the easiest way. Um, it's like other part of your question, like, how do you feel that time to change your mindset? Well, usually what changes your mindset is pain. Like, have you endured enough pain? Because usually when you get to that point of either desperation or pain, that's usually what changes your mindset. And FOMO is definitely real, but it's sort of like, does the FOMO cost you money, or does the FOMO, like, are you really, FOMO is like you think you're losing something. But when you're having that FOMO and you're mentally losing something because you're not in the trade that's going in a certain direction, then okay, that's a non-tangible loss. I'm just analyzing the fallacy of FOMO, but it's still real.
Mm-hmm.
So then if you look at statistically, okay, let's say you're chasing trades or you're FOMOing into trades, statistically, does that equal monetary gain? And if it does, well, then you're good. If it's not, then that FOMO is actually costing you money. So consistency, I think a lot has to do with how much pain tolerance you have, and how badly you want consistency. How badly do you want it? Because, sure, we badly want money. We badly want to keep trading. It's like, no, how badly do you want the consistency? How badly do you want to be able to lock in a green day? Do you want it enough to say, I'm going to forgo all the thousands of dollars I could have made if I keep trading today, but not realizing of all the $1,000 I could lose to make those thousands of dollars if I keep trading today. So it's sort of, do you want it enough to not have the potential $1,000 and just be okay with what it is you do have?
And at some point, you're going to hit that pain if you don't trade intelligently, like Rose is saying. Like,
Yeah,
it's
and for sure, like that pain might be that you're back to break even when you were green and you could have just locked it in, or it could be that you gave back as much as you were green, and you really have to. Locking it in as soon as you get up some money is for sure like the most valuable thing you can do as a new trader who's like wondering, how am I going to make this work? Or, FOMO is the destroyer of new traders, or the destroyer of consistency. And locking it in is literally, that should be your number one focus. Like, you're up money, cool, lock it in. Like, that's it. And then, like, if you can start locking in green days, the next thing is to start like locking in slightly bigger green days, whether that means doing a slightly bigger tier, or whatever it may be. But FOMOing about what you could have made after you logged off is absolutely just a destroyer of traders, in my opinion.
Yep. It'll absolutely wreck you. You sitting there thinking about what you could make or whatever it is, you're done. At that point, you're already toxic. Like, at that point, you've already tilted because you're already gone and you need to step away. If you're afraid of walking away because of what you could miss, like, you're already done. You're already not going to take like You've already tilted. It's already done. And how I got there, and the same as Rose and CeeTee, I think, or maybe I got tired of losing. Like I got tired of coming back from 20 grand down days and making 20 grand and being like, why the heck couldn't I just make 20 grand or whatever it was? And same thing on the month or the week or a day. It was just like I'm just like, you know what? I want consistency, not mental like instability. I would rather sit there and have and be happy with these small green days, which I've shown that slide on how many pictures now, on how many like shows now of how much you need to make a certain amount over the year or the month. And that's all I, that's all I had to do. And that was kind of my focus.
Yeah, and for every struggling trader out there who's trying to turn this into a job, like just tear down as much as necessary so that you don't deplete your capital, and put together a calendar where it's mostly green. And then once you can do that for a month or two, then you can start adding very small to your tier size. And as long as you keep doing that gradually, you're going to get there. Like you've got to be patient in this business, and like all three of us will agree, consistency is the number one thing. So that and preserving your capital, you can't trade without money. So if you've got money, uh, make sure you don't lose it while you're learning, and just work on being consistent, even if that's at a small tier. I did that for 8 months before I started taking any trades of any size. And I could have come in and started trading 30 contracts of Tesla if I wanted to, but no, I kept it small for 8 months, built my consistency, and then from there it was all just downhill. I mean, downhill doesn't sound like the right phrase to use.
From there
But
it
it
was
was
gone.
all easy from there.
It's all,
Definitely not the right phrase.
Not the right phrase.
unless downhill's a good thing and you're skiing and in the Winter Olympics or
Right.
something.
Right.
But to jump back, and we can come back to this, but to jump back really quick, and I'll throw us off the screen. Here's what I'm talking about with zooming out, and what CeeTee is talking about with zooming out, and what Praveen in chat is talking about with using the C strategies. If you're able to zoom out, this chart here is a 15-minute chart. I don't know how many times today Geronimo said the Qs are not closing above. The Qs are not closing above the 8 on the 15-minute. So every time they hit the 8, C strategies worked short. So you could literally sit here and like have like, oh, on the 15-minute it hit the 8 and then it broke down below the 8. And let's move to where the chart is so you can see at the 2-minute, and I can zoom out. So there we go. So you can kind of see starting here, and I could go back, but like you could see what happened over here on this 2-minute. I'm just going to zoom in some. It hit the 8 on the 15, and then you get a little bit of a short, and then it bounces back up, and it hits the 8 over here, and then you get a bigger short in the Qs, and then it pops back up, it hits the 8 again, and then you get this other massive short. So if you're noticing a trend, like, hey, this name is not, and I'm just using the Qs as an example because of the way Geronimo called it out. If it can't get above a moving average all day, and I know Velez and other people talk about this, but if you're noticing that on these bigger time frames, that's when you then look to the C strategies, because the C strategies, simple, easy, effective, they are all of those things. 2-minute setups and then all this other stuff in the 1-minute area, they work, but you need kind of a trigger to get them to work and an area to take them. It's not every 1-minute breakdown, it's not all this, but if you can start implementing them based off of these bigger time frames, when you notice like, hey, it cannot break and hold the 8 EMA all day on the 15-minute, so every time it gets there and it starts breaking down, I'm going to just do a little low conviction short, and I'm going to make my 30 cents, 50 cents, and then I'm going to leave it alone again. You could just sit there and do that all day in the Qs or these other names if you start noticing, it happening. I'm pretty sure Google did the same thing. Like once it broke down here, every time it popped up and hit the 8, it fell, and it didn't hit it that much. But zooming out is really effective. Just to jump back into what Praveen was saying there, when you start noticing these things happen on a larger time frame, you can then take the strategies and your entry points from stochastics, and I'll throw us back all on the screen now. Uh, from stochastics, from C strategy setups off of moving averages to find entry points to make money. But zooming out helps you see that, and so you zoom out and you're like, oh, wait a minute, there's this trend happening. Okay, and now I'm going to come in and I'm going to, okay, so we're at the top. Let's look for the breakdown. Oh, here's the breakdown. I'm going to take it. And you can start to build that kind of like lower conviction, slower move kind of entry point consistency as opposed to just bending in the middle. And what I found sitting throughout the day, if I'm watching bigger time frames, I'm less prone to Amazon did it. Okay, dar. Um, I'm less prone to tilting into a million trades because I said it a couple weeks ago. I'm hunting for something. I'm like, the gator sitting on the top of the water waiting for the antelope or whatever to come near so I can kill them. It's like I'm waiting for the trade to set up. I'm just sitting here and I'm hunting and playing chess, probably on chess.com or something. But I'm sitting here waiting for the setup to happen, and the setup's there, and I take that trade. And now it might be 15, 20, 30 minutes before the next one comes, but I'm just waiting for that setup because I know when that comes, I'm going to be able to take it. So instead of bending during the day and getting wrecked, waiting for the setup, waiting for the trend, noticing what's happening on these bigger time frames, and now these measured moves and the certain moving averages that it can't break above. It's hit them, it's breaking down. There's these pivots here, this hourly pivot. Geronimo's on the mic saying, hey, this is great. And I like this short here. Doesn't mean I take it. Remember, we don't follow people exactly. We know what we do well, and we adapt what they do to fit what we do. If you just follow any of us, you're going to lose. But if you learn what we're trying to do and what we're looking at, you can then take that and use that yourself for trading. So, like, to kind of combine both things of the tilting and what Praveen and what we taught, what CT you said earlier with the larger time frames, all of that combined together, I just got tired of like, if I'm going to sit here getting sucked in and blown out, so I had to find something else to look for. And looking for that longer time frame, more patterns in the market, better entry points to like hunt those winners down. That's helped me not blow out, and I haven't blown out now. I'm not having a great month like at all, but I'm fine. I'm just sitting here waiting for something, and I think I'll have a better week next week, small consistency, and maybe I'll have a good week, maybe I'll have a bad week. I don't know. I'm just going to wait and try to be consistent and grow as opposed to trying to just swing for the fences because, oh man, I just got to get something, you know?
I'm gonna hit Graf's question here real quick. So Graf, during those 8 months, what I found during those 8 months, because I was very diligent about logging my trades, is that I did identify that I was making money early, and then giving it back throughout the day. And I also, one of the biggest things that I think that I struggled with was that my losers were frequently maybe 2 to 3 times the size of my winning trades. So even if I was winning 75% of my trades, I was still break even because my losers were so big. So cutting your losers extremely fast helped me tremendously. And then once I realized that I'm consistent for a particular time frame during the day, back then it was maybe the first 30 minutes, then what I was able to do was, okay, so instead of trading one contract, I'm going to go up to 4 contracts. I'm going to stop, either as soon as I'm like green or stop after 30 minutes. And that kept me from giving back. And that's when I turned the corner, and things went from like 8 months of my account being flat to, doubling it in, I don't know, 8 weeks or so, or thereabouts. So just focus on, identifying what you're doing good and what you're not doing good while you don't have a lot, when you're not risking anything. And then you're going to start to see the patterns emerge, and you can start, making changes. And once you have, a consistent business plan for yourself, and you know what you do well and what you can do consistently, then you can start taking like the slightly bigger tiers. Hopefully that answers your question.
And hello, Russian bot.
Finally, dude.
I
They
think
keep coming later and later.
we're not that important. They're working on invading Ukraine. I don't think they care about us right now.
Indeed. So my wife is back from visiting family this week, so I see that we're coming up on 2 hours.
Hmm.
Shall we start wrapping up, or are you guys
Yeah.
just gonna party all night?
I don't. I think we can probably. I mean, I could definitely always party all night, but it is getting late. It's about 11:30 East Coast, so you know, and CT is going. So I think we can probably. If there's no other like immediate questions or stuff, I'll just see if anything pops up. I really appreciate you two coming on and hanging out and chatting. It's good to kind of end the week and kind of reflect. It was a tough week. It was definitely a tough week. Money to be made, but a tough week.
Indeed, yeah, this was a challenging week, and I think that I'm super pleased with how I did given the market conditions, and I feel like every week I'm making improvements, those incremental improvements, and feel really good about the direction things are going. And I think it sounds, Rose, like you're improving in a similar fashion.
Well, I'm not proud of how I did the week because I got too undisciplined, but I am proud of how I ended the week because it gives me hope. There's still hope for me for maybe next week.
And I'm about the same. It's like I'm overall pretty happy with how I did. A few undisciplined that's like, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that. But um, overall, I'm still going to be coming on here Monday to trade. I'm just fine as far as everything goes. So I'm going to continue to work and continue to grow. So I appreciate you guys coming on. I appreciate everybody that's hanging out and chat and, the trades with us and stuff. You guys are the best. Love you guys. Leave a like, share, comment, subscribe, all that fun jazz, if you get the chance to, if you care, if you like this stuff. Have a good weekend. Get away from the market, relax, distress, like enjoy life. Valentine's Day weekend, go, do your stuff, whatever. Take your special person out. And hey, enjoy life. You guys got anything before we sign off?
Just love you all. Appreciate everybody in chat and everybody that trades with us. Everybody's wonderful, and could never do this without this group.
I like that. Everybody's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you